Eden's End, a Good Omens fanfiction, written by DarkMoonSigil, read aloud by SkyAsimaru. If you enjoy this podfic, you can check out the original story on Archive of Our Own. If you would like to hear more of my recordings, or see some of my own work, you can find me through the pen and screen name of SkyAsimaru. Eden's End by DarkMoonSigil. Summary: a continuation of Aziraphale and Crowley's conversation up on the wall. God invents something new because of it. Notes: I love me some Good Omens fluff. Okay, just personal headcanon, but I definitely believe that Aziraphale tore a hole in that wall. Adam and Eve didn't have the tools or time to do it, and we see in episode 2 Aziraphale fixing it. See the end of the work for more notes.
What in hell?
Crowley looked up in dismay at towers of gathering clouds that were almost as dark as his robes. Normally quiet and quite ignorable, there were now clouds making great big sounds that shook the very air around them. The demon decided that he really didn't like that. He liked it even less when a sharp, blinding light was thrown out of those dark, grumbling clouds at the earth. It was followed with an even larger boom of sound, the volume of which made Crowley edge closer to the angel before he realized what he was actually doing. To Crowley's immediate surprise, the angel merely let him sidle in closer, raising his left wing to protect the demon from the water that was suddenly beginning to fall out of the sky. All the days had been nice up till now. There was no telling what could happen now.
Oh, I don't like this. I don't like this at all,
Crowley said, jumping as more noisy light was thrown out by all the fussy clouds, seemingly at once. The sky water was starting to really come down now, too. Crowley didn't want to go back to hell. Not that he was planning to, but he didn't want to go out in this weather either, especially if he had no idea what other tricks it had in store. The noisy bastard clouds were learning how to be mean now that they were armed.
Hopefully this mess doesn't become a regular thing.
Wonders next ceasing, the decision was made for him as the angel curled in his wing to bring the demon in even closer to him. Crowley giving Aziraphale a questioning look before moving, the angel signaled his intention with a gesture from his right wing.
You might as well sit down. It's going to be a while, I'm afraid to say, by the looks of it.
Aziraphale sighed, not sure what to make of the Lord's latest creation either. As the demon took a seat at his feet, the angel brought his other wing forward to completely cover Crowley in a neat tent of feathers.
You know you could use your wings to keep both of us dry,
Crowley said, feeling like a fledgling angel. It was something he never got to experience for himself in heaven, being one of the first created. He vaguely remembered doing something similar with the other newly created angels of the lower spheres, though for very different reasons. He tried to ignore the feelings that this situation was inspiring within him. He wasn't supposed to feel safe with an angel, or, Satan forbid, loved. He also couldn't quite fathom why the angel was being so kind to him.
I couldn't guard the eastern gate of Eden very well if I did that,
Aziraphale said, unbothered by being wet, his curls, back, and shoulders already soaked through. He didn't know why the sky water bothered Crowley, finally deciding for himself it must be some sort of demon thing.
Got it from what, exactly? The worst thing that could have possibly happened has already happened,
Crowley pointed out, testing his luck by leaning up against the angel's legs. Like any other angel, Aziraphale was standing ramrod straight, his body posture compact and precise, as tightly as coiled spring. Crowley was also pleasantly surprised to find that he could touch the angel, the demon completely unsmited by the close contact. It only proved his suspicions that hell was just as untrustworthy as heaven, and that propaganda and lies were as above, as so below. Smirking to himself, Crowley relaxed, loose-limbed and languid because he could, letting his head knock back into Aziraphale's rigidly clasped hands. He wished he could see the angel's face to find out what kind of reaction he was getting.
Well, there is a rather large hole in it. It simply won't do to let anything else happen.
Aziraphale sighed, trying not to pay too close attention to the demon scrawled out on top of his feet and pressed up to his legs. If the angel was being completely honest with himself, he was surprised that they could even touch. Crowley felt warmer than any other angel, but that was about it. Not that Aziraphale had much experience with that sort of thing. Angels weren't exactly the most affectionate of beings, especially after the fall happened. Losing so many of their own kind to bear witness to their change had been brutal. Friends and loved ones now their enemies for the rest of eternity. The remaining angels didn't want to ever feel that sort of terrible loss again, so they now distanced themselves from each other, keeping one another at wing's length. Aziraphale wondered briefly if he should inform the higher-ups about this misinformation, but then let that notion go. He was already going to be in enough trouble if they found out about the sword, or him abandoning his post to rip a big hole in the garden's wall, or anything about him helping Adam and Eve. Not that he would ever admit it aloud, but Aziraphale got the feeling that the other angels, at best, merely tolerated the humans. The angel of the Western Gate certainly hadn't felt inclined to help them. Not that they would know, having not moved an inch from their post, steadfastly staring out into the west as they had been ordered to. The back of Crowley's head kept brushing up against his hands, the demon's curls warm to the touch. Aziraphale wished that he could see through his wings down at the demon. Crowley has such pretty hair, so long and different from anyone else's, or at least from what Aziraphale had seen so far. Giving in to temptation, and was it even temptation, Aziraphale asked himself, especially if he was just offering Crowley a more comfortable place to rest his head, as the angel unclasped his hands, relaxing his fingers into curly tendrils. Crowley froze under the touch, the angel doing something totally unexpected yet again. Aziraphale's touch was light and exploratory, his fingers testing out what curls could do as he looped them gently around his fingers like big satiny rings. The gentle tugging that made his scalp madly tingle was about all it took to make the demon melt back into the angel's palms.
I'm sorry. Is this all right?
Aziraphale stammered, taking his hands away to find them being quickly pushed back into place.
That was very rude of me. I should have asked.
It's fine. Feels nice.
Crowley managed to hiss out, unable to form words properly at the moment. The sky water was making the most soothing sounds now against the angel's wings, the clouds finally settling down with their light show kaboom tantrum.
Oh, good.
Aziraphale smiled, enjoying what he was feeling, even if he couldn't see it. The demon's curls were incredibly soft and smooth as Aziraphale ran his fingers through them.
Tell me, Angel, why is there a great big hole in Eastern Gate? That doesn't sound like a structurally sound thing to have in a wall.
Crowley remembered to ask what had been nagging at him before the rest of his brain was turned into relaxed mush.
I put it there,
Aziraphale said, like it was the most obvious thing in all of creation. That was enough to bypass every pleasure center, Crowley's curiosity having a life and mind of its own.
You did what now?
Crowley sat up a little straighter, suddenly at full attention. Thankfully, the angel didn't stop what he was doing, seeming content to play with the demon's hair as they spoke.
Well, how else were they going to get out? As much as the name implies, the Eastern Gate doesn't have any portal for entrance or exit, Aziraphale explained. So I thought it best to just make one for them.
Why?
Crowley had a feeling that he was going to adore this answer.
It seemed like the right thing to do. I'll patch it up before anyone has a chance to really notice,
Aziraphale said, trying not to imagine how Crowley would react. The demon had looked so shocked yet impressed by his earlier admittance about the sword. No one had ever looked at Aziraphale like that before, or gazed at him with such shock and awe. It made Aziraphale shiver in what he would later know as the feeling of delight. Crowley was suddenly very grateful that the angel couldn't see his face. This day was taking more twists and turns than even Crowley's own incredible imagination could have come up with. This angel had not only given away a holy weapon forged by God herself, for him and him alone to use, to the humans, but this strange angel had destroyed part of her garden, the Garden of Gardens, to help the humans escape from her wrath. Crowley wished he could have been there to watch Aziraphale tear apart the thing he was supposed to be guarding with his bare hands. The thought of it sent the most delicious shiver down Crowley's spine, the demon unfamiliar with what he was suddenly experiencing. All he knew is that he wanted to keep experiencing it, and Crowley decided the best way to do that was to get to know this Aziraphale better. Love at first sight was about to be created. Not that the angel and demon knew anything about that, or how it would affect them until the almost end of days. God had been watching this entire exchange ever since the serpent slithered up the wall to chat up its guardian. It was much like an artist who had taken a moment to step back from their latest project and ended up going, "Huh," upon noticing a fine, tiny detail almost hidden in the corner of it. She was still making it all up, whatever it was, as she went along, but something had gone awry there with that particular angel and demon. Things left on Earth for too long had the tendency to do that, though, go quirky all on their own. Apparently, that tendency could even influence her ethereal and occult children as well. God smiled, going back to work, but leaving that fine, tiny detail hidden in the corner of creation alone. Well, alone-ish, love at first sight, now a very real thing, as the rain turned all soft and misty, making white wings part, so soft, shy blue eyes could finally look down into gold serpentine ones that were wide with wonder. Notes. Thanks for reading. Your comments are very impressed with Aziraphale's handiwork. Your kudos take turns entering and exiting Eden via the big bloody hole in the wall.